Traveling men keep Connie's seemingly out-of-control world spinning sweetly on its phallic axis. Her list of conquests is quite astonishing. Members of The Who, The Stones, Fleetwood Mac, ZZ Top, and Kiss. She made naughty videos with the clean-cut Rick Springfield and got it on with a willing girl in the tour bus while Huey Lewis and the entire News and their crew cheered. From all of the Allman Brothers and Van Halen, 2 of Led Zeppelin, a threesome with 2 Eagles, to heated cunnilingus with Johnny Carson's band leader, Doc Severinsen, and a salacious encounter with then Governor Bill Clinton. Connie's horny history is unequaled in the annals of groupiedom. She was eternally immortalized in 1973 when Grand Funk Railroad celebrated her expertise in the classic song, We're an American Band. Out on the road for 40 days, last night in Little Rock put me in a haze. Sweet, sweet Connie doing her act. She had the whole show, and that's a natural fact. These 4 lines enhanced Connie's burgeoning reputation and made sure Little Rock was on tour itineraries. Notice that she had the whole show and not just the band. Most groupies believed it was beneath them to extend favors to the crew, but from the very beginning, Connie spread the love to everyone involved in the creation of the rock and roll spectacle. Yeah. Back in swinging 1974, an intrepid journalist from Cosmopolitan magazine ventured into a broken-down part of Little Rock known as Dogtown to have a discussion with 19-year-old Connie at her parents' humble one-story house. As her worry mom, Joetta, hovered uncomfortably nearby, Connie happily admitted to already taking care of 200 to 300 people in the industry. This interview took place 31 years ago, and she still hasn't come up for air. The writer describes the shabbiness of Connie's teenage room, the rag dolls on the bed, the hamster rattling around in its cage. It all started when she was 15, Connie said, when she was invited backstage at a Steppenwolf concert. She made eyes with the band and paid strict attention to the lyrics of the song Hey Lottie Mama, all about cock-teasing girls who didn't put out. I kept thinking, gee, they're probably on a plane somewhere thinking, that Connie, she's just a CT. And I decided that I would put out to the next group that came to town. So that's the beginning. I'm going to go a little further in, read a little more about Connie. She's a fabulous girl, really. I wish she was here with us. Connie and I have more in common than we realized. Waylon Jennings, Jimmy Page, and Keith Moon. She met the brilliant manic drummer for The Who when a promoter took her backstage in St. Louis. I was in the dressing room after the show. Security wasn't the way it is nowadays. And Keith and Roger were not getting along. What else is new, right? For some reason, Roger decided to upend a whole table of food. Then he started crying. Oh, poor Roger. Keith and I started fooling around, and before I knew it, he had my jeans off and was fucking me with a banana to ease the mood and break the tension. Keith was that kind of guy. After you see somebody get fucked with a piece of fruit, you forget what happened 5 minutes earlier. Then he said, come back with me to the hotel. And I spent the night with him at the Chase Park Plaza. The whole time I was with Keith, I thought, this is that guy I used to see on Where the Action Is. He had the most beautiful facial features when he played the drums. When we weren't making love, he had a little 45 RPM record player and played a stack of records and sang along to him. He'd go down to the bar for booze and bring it back up to the suite, and we'd sit there and drink and sing and fuck. We sang This Diamond Ring and Love Potion No. 9 at the top of our lungs. He invited me to go with him to Detroit, and I said, I can't go. I live with my parents, and I ain't got any clothes. Connie and I also have my early mentor, Frank Zappa, in common, but in a decidedly different way. He was always captivated by out-of-ordinary individuals, so their encounter doesn't surprise me. Gosh, I was only with Frank one time, and he was such a dear, and he was so apologetic. When I first met him during the sound check, I was fooling around with the crew because they'd taken care of me all day and given me a pass. I was walking with this roadie into a little tuning room, and Frank got on the microphone and said, okay, Connie, I guess that makes number 10. He turned out to be a great lover, though, and that night when we were in his hotel room, he said, I want to apologize to you for saying that. Oh, wasn't that nice of Frank? Yeah. When she was almost 19, 2 things happened that finally got Connie booted out of her childhood home. Not much had happened with Grand Funk other than me blowing Don Brewer and Mel Skacher, I don't know how you say his name, I'm sorry. And if memory serves, I took care of the keyboard player a time or two. She says taking care of. That's what she calls when she does these things with these guys. It's really quite gentle and kind, really. In June of '73, I was sitting on a towel at the beach with my transistor radio on. Most of my girlfriends were out on rafts in the lake when the disc jockey said, "Ladies and gentlemen, we just got the new song by Grand Funk Railroad, and you all are not going to believe this. You know that dark-haired girl you always see backstage at concerts? Listen to the first few lyrics of this song." And I started jumping up and down, screaming for my friends to come listen. Not long after, where an American band blasted the airwaves, Connie's startling tell-all article shook up the community. I got out of the house because the interview in Cosmopolitan, when that hit the stands, my mother said, "Okay, enough's enough. You're talking in this national publication about sucking dick and swallowing. You're out of here." It was really an amazing journey, you know, interviewing all these girls. It took me 2 years. And it's a big old book. It's 400 pages long, and they cut 50 pages out. One-night bands, which was a great chapter, just full of one-night stand stories that hopefully I'll get it out somehow. I'm going to have Patty read again. She's going to read from her chapter. It's called My Lady Darwinville, yes?
Yeah.
Yes, which is a song written about her by Cat Stevens. Yeah. Yes. That's the ultimate have him write you a song.
Yes.
She's had many songs written.
Okay. I was in London modeling and went to Sir William Piggott Brown's country house one beautiful sunny Saturday. Patty begins wistfully. Steve Winwood was there, Eric Clapton, Ginger Baker, Jimmy Page. Everywhere you looked, there was an amazing musician. I used to be painfully shy, which should probably come as a huge surprise to you. I eventually overcame it because it was really getting in my way. But to this day, the only person I've ever been tongue-tied around completely was Jimmy Page. He was the most gorgeous man I'd ever seen in my life. He must have thought I didn't like him, but the words just wouldn't come. Jimmy Page was like a painting, therefore I was unable to say a word. There was a less daunting fellow at the country house that day. Across the room, I saw this wan, thin, dark guy smoking a cigarette. We just stared at each other. Then I went over and asked him for a cigarette, and he told me he had just gotten out of the hospital with tuberculosis. I said, "Well, and you're smoking?" And he told me that his hit record was peaking, and he started coughing up blood, and, he was in the hospital, and he talked about his parents. His mother was Swedish, and his father was Greek, and I had no idea who he was. Patty had been dating singer Barry Ryan, who was in a group with his twin brother Paul, who had just happened to be best friends with Cat Stevens. I walked in one evening with Barry.
Sorry.
Yeah. I walked in one evening with Barry, and there was the dark guy from the party playing guitar with Paul, and he smiled at me. He started coming over more and more, and there was flirting going on every time, but Barry was absolutely clueless. Then one day, a whole group of us went to an amusement park. I'm afraid of heights, and there was this ride with 2 buckets that went up and down and around at top, and I'd never even been on a roller coaster. Well, anyway, nobody would go on with Stephen. His friends never called him Cat. And when he said, "Who's going on with me?" I said, "I'll do it." It felt like I was going to the chair. The bucket started swinging, and I held on to him, and I wouldn't let